Hi, I am Crisan Paul Tantabale, a student of Bachelor of Physical Education of Notre Dame of Marble University. On this instructional video, I'll demonstrate to you the different movement patterns which are the sagittal plane, the frontal plane, and the transverse plane. The median plane, also called a mid-sagittal plane, is used to describe the sagittal plane as it bisects the body vertically through the midline marked by the navel, dividing the body exactly in left and right side. The term parasagittal plane is used to refer to any plane parallel to the sagittal and median plane. Flexion and extension. Flexion is the bending a joint. This occurs when the angle of a joint decreases. For example, the elbow flexes when performing a biceps curl. Extension of the shoulder refers to lowering the entire arm from a flexed or raised position until the limb is in alignment with the hips and beyond the body, which permits the arm to perform limited range of motion behind the back. Steps on how to do a biceps curl. Step 1. Start standing with a dumbbell. I don't have a dumbbell. I'll use rocks instead in each hand. Your elbows should rest at your sides and your forearms should extend out in front of your body. Your knees should stay slightly bent and your belly button should draw into the spine. Step 2. Bring the rocks all the way up to your shoulders by bending your elbows. Once at the top, hold for a second by squeezing the muscle. And last step is reverse the curl slowly and repeat. Hyperextension is an excessive joint movement in which the angle formed by the bones of a particular joint is opened or straightened beyond its normal, healthy range of motion. A hyperextended elbow occurs when your elbow joint bends backward more than it should. This condition mostly happens in individuals involved in weight-bearing activities or contact sports. Plantar flexion is a movement in which the top of your foot points away from your leg. You use plantar flexion whenever you stand on the tip of your toes or point your toes. Every person's natural range of movement in this position is different. Several muscles control plantar flexion. Any injury to these muscles can limit your range of motion and affect your ability to do activities that require plantar flexion. Dorsiflexion is the backward bending and contracting of your hand or foot. This is the extension of your foot at the ankle and your hand at the wrist. Dorsiflexion occurs in your ankle when you draw your toes back toward your shins. You contract the shin bones and flex the ankle joint when you dorsiflex your foot. For example, walking in heel where the toes are brought closer to the shin. This decreases the angle between the dorsum of the foot and the leg. The coronal plane of movement. Coronal plane movements occur where this imaginary pane of glass sits, meaning anytime you abduct or move away from the midline and adduct, move toward the midline. Abduction and adduction. Motions occur within the coronal plane and involve the medial lateral motions of the limbs, fingers, toes, or thumb. Abduction moves the limb laterally away from the midline of the body, while adduction is the opposing movement that brings the limb toward the body or across the midline. For example, abduction is raising the arm at the shoulder joint, moving it laterally away from the body, while adduction brings the arm down to the side of the body. Movement of a body part to the side is called lateral flexion. This type of movement is commonly associated with the neck and spine. Inversion and eversion refer to movements that tilt the sole of the foot away from eversion or towards the inversion, the midline of the body. Eversion is the movement of the sole of the foot away from the medial plane. Inversion is the movement of the sole towards the median plane. Depression and elevation are downward and upward movements of the scapula or mandible. The transverse plane or axial plane, also called the horizontal plane or transaxial plane, is an imaginary plane that divides the body into superior and inferior parts. It is perpendicular to the coronal plane and sagittal plane. Horizontal adduction and horizontal abduction are used to describe the position of the arm in the sagittal plane of motion with reference to the center of the torso horizontal neutral and horizontal abduction or arm behind the torso. And here is the example of horizontal abduction and horizontal adduction. Horizontal adduction and horizontal abduction are used to describe the position of the arm in the sagittal plane of motion with reference to the center of the torso horizontal neutral and horizontal abduction or arm behind the torso. And here is the example of horizontal abduction and horizontal adduction. Turning a screwdriver and turning a key are two examples of the functional movement that utilize pronation and supination. There are a number of muscles involved in each of these movements which work synergistically. Circumduction is the movement of a body region in a circular manner, in which one end of the body region being moved stays relatively stationary while the other end describes a circle. It involves the sequential combination of flexion, adduction, extension, and abduction at a joint.